Aloha and welcome to Supply Chain Training with Vessel. Thank you and mahalo for attending. We are excited to dig into this topic at hand with you and your team. Being born and raised in Hawaii, I have a vested interest in the success of manufacturing companies in my home state, especially since I grew up with most of these local brands. We spoke with Hawaii manufacturing companies like you to understand the unique challenges you face on a daily basis. Thank you for participating in our research. We really appreciate all your time and feedback, as it was important for us to connect with Hawaii companies first. The opportunity to work with your companies generated a lot of excitement for us to dig into this project. We believe this training will provide key insights to help your team improve over multiple supply chain areas. Our goal is to provide education to bring applicable next steps to your company to improve your processes and overall efficiencies. To better serve you through this training, we would love to identify topics you would like to learn more about through your feedback. Please leave a comment below, letting us know what we should dig into further. Mahalo.
Welcome to this education module on shipping. In this video, I'll be covering a few basic concepts which are imperative to the deployment of a shipping strategy that fits your organization. We will start with some basic concepts for ocean freight, more specifically, containers and fees. And then we'll move in to how to evaluate the right shipping partners and some key questions to ask when building a shipping strategy. This will mostly have to do with the difference in 3PLs and freight forwarders. We spent hours interviewing Hawaiian companies and leveraged our network of experts in logistics to bring to light the most pressing topics for review. Additionally, you'll find that much of the content that we've created is directed toward food manufacturers, as those were the overwhelming majority of companies that we collaborated with. When this video is complete, we hope that you'll take some time to revisit your existing shipping plan. And if you don't have one formally documented, you'll take action to develop one. And before we really dive in, keep in mind that we recognize that in a post-pandemic world, navigating logistics challenges can be time-consuming, expensive, and complex. Hawaii has unique geographic constraints, which can make it difficult to put your product in your customers' hands at an affordable price. Additionally, rising costs and global supply chain issues have likely thrown a wrench or two into your business operations over the past few years. This is all the more reason to get educated and organized regarding shipping, and to make sure that your team understands the decisions that you made and why they're in place. Let's start with the basics of ocean freight. We have two types of freight: FCL, full container load, or LCL, less than container load. Full containers can be 20 feet or 40 feet. There is an additional nuance that in 40-foot containers are something called cube high containers. It's basically an extra foot of height in a 40-foot full container. But full containers are the goal because there are several benefits to maximizing space. Less than container load is sometimes the company's only option. Just make sure that you know that you're sharing your container with other companies' products. And as you can imagine, the coordination required tends to be a bit more complex. The major benefit of shipping full containers is that your shipment tends to get to the port faster. Check with your transportation company on if they can ship directly from Asia to Honolulu, for instance. And due to the Jones Act, if you're shipping materials from Asia to Hawaii, and especially if it's coming less than container load, your shipment's gonna have to stop at LAX. It'll likely be offloaded and then shipped to the island. And I know that the fees around this can be frustrating, but certainly there's nothing that we can do about that in this video today. With regards to food manufacturing, one of the biggest risks that you should be mitigating is if you elect to ship LCL shipments. You need to make sure that if you're doing so, that you're shipping a food grade truckload and that the storage of the product in transit is in food grade warehouses. This simple oversight can contaminate food products, and you would risk being outside the HARP-C, or the Hazardous Analysis and Risk-Based Preventative Control measures put forth by the FDA through the Food Safety Modernization Act. A lot of acronyms there, but basically, regardless of shipment, HARPC requirements include everyone in the supply chain, including manufacturers, processors, packaging, and food storage, comply with their regulations. If you're shipping less than container load that isn't food grade, you can get contaminated. If you are storing food products in locations that aren't designed for food products, they could come into contact with hazardous materials or, more frequently, animal traffic like rats, birds, cats, or wild animals that can contaminate your shipment. If you don't have a documented plan within the HARPC requirements that identify food safety hazards associated with the processes that they're made in, which requires that you identify food safety hazards, that you implement controls to minimize those hazards, that you verify that those controls are working, and that you design corrective actions to address deviation from those food controls, you could be audited. You could be shut down. Or worse, you could unintentionally hurt your customers. So we talked about containers on the ocean. Now let's talk about some important fees to know. There are 5 standard fees that it's important to know and address with your freight partners. 1, ocean freight charges. These are basically fees associated with shipping containers. For full container load shipping, it represents the cost of a full container. And less than container load shipping, it represents a cost of the percentage of the container that you're occupying. There's also trade line charges, which is the route that your freight partner is utilizing, which can be higher than you expect. So make sure that you understand what you're paying for and that your freight partner is optimizing these routes. Bunker adjustment fees are used to adjust for the changing of fuel prices. Peak season surcharges are exactly what they sound like. Charges associated with the busiest season for shipping, usually August to November. There's also an automated manifest system charge, which is just related to the electronic transfer of data. Keep in mind that these are not the only fees to expect. Once your product comes off the boat or is put onto rail and truck and is shipped to the end customer, there's a variety of fees assessed as well. Additionally, depending on the product that you are shipping, its weight, its classification, its size, you'll have a variety of other charges to consider. We aren't going to explore all of the possible charges here, but we want to make sure that you understand that you should write down all of the charges that you are paying out today and make sure that you have a detailed explanation of each and how the charges are being calculated, just to make sure that you aren't being charged for anything that you shouldn't. So now we have the basics of shipping containers and costs, but as most of you know, that's the easy part. There are a variety of shipping partners that need to be involved to ensure the goods are in compliance with international regulations, as well as partnerships that get your product to their final destination. Let's start simple with customs brokers. If you are shipping internationally, you are going to need a customs broker to complete your shipment. International freight must be registered with Customs and Border Patrol. Your customs broker will file important duties and taxes on your behalf based on the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, which is a list of codes used to classify as goods that are imported into the United States. Your company is typically responsible for classifying your product, even though your customs broker is filing the paperwork. If you don't know exactly what classification your product is, there are classification services available. The Harmonized Tariff Schedule reflects a duty rate, which simply put is some percent of the commercial value of your shipment. All right, freight forwarders and 3PLs were often the topic of discussion when we interviewed Hawaiian companies. We heard plenty of questions asking for the clear differences between them and how to work better with them as shipping partners. We'll spend the rest of the video focusing on those areas. Let's start with freight forwarders. A freight forwarder can be the best option for your organization. These are typically middlemen that are transportation services providers who have a strong network that can coordinate shipping on your behalf. Just like every industry, however, not all freight forwarding companies are created equal. They can differ in their industry connections, capability, pricing, and the quality and the process of their communications. Freight forwarding companies tend to focus on a bill of lading. This important document is provided by your company to the freight forward with clear expectations of what is being shipped and its details. Oftentimes, it's best to have a little back and forth with your freight forwarding company to make sure the details on the bill of lading is correct. Freight forwarders typically move high volumes of freight, which allows them to negotiate reduced rates with transportation services. Sometimes these are passed on to customers, and sometimes the inverse is true. You might see additional fees if you're working with a partner who doesn't get volume discounts or doesn't have favorable terms in place with their logistics partners. It's important to understand the fee structure so you can compare your options between freight forwarders. Another important conversation to have with your freight forwarder is on damaged goods and the policy and process around damaged goods. What does the claims process look like? How long does it take to refund? If you don't understand these things, you might find yourself scrambling and frustrated on dealing with damaged goods. You just kind of have to accept this as a part of shipping. It's going to happen to everyone at some point, so a clear understanding of how to deal with it with your freight forwarder is key. Freight forwarding between the islands of Hawaii can be especially complicated. Prices have increased 40% since 2019, and additionally, as many of you know, there are only a few freight forwarding companies to choose from. In the face of these daunting challenges, you might want to consider being creative to reduce your shipping cost. Work with other companies or partners to try to make a full container load. Reduce unnecessary packaging or dunnage. Innovate your product to reduce waste. Use refurbished or reused shipping materials or pallets. It might not seem like much, but every penny adds up when you're trying to reduce operational costs associated with shipping and build in depth to your shipping plan. Now, let's look at 3PLs, or third-party logistics companies. At the highest level, a 3PL tends to be more hands-on with your product. They offer a wider variety of services, including specialized storage, consulting, or they can even act as an extension of your team. This is especially helpful when you're shipping perishable items or have products that have specialized safety or quality requirements or items that are consumed by humans. Their network of services tend to be more robust, have multiple freight forwarding companies within them, and depending on the company, they may have some creative shipping strategies that they're able to deploy. We reached out to DSR, Direct Support Resources, a well-known and respected 3PL with a vast knowledge of doing business on the islands. DSR's expertise includes multiple industries, but is recognized in the food-grade storage, supporting companies on the island. We asked how companies might get the most out of a relationship with a 3PL. Here are a few tips to help get you started. Be prepared for questions about your business and your business goals. Have a detailed list of product specifications and have it organized. Be prepared to discuss your storage needs and product constraints. And be prepared to discuss your timing and expectations for shipping. DSR reminded us that, like most things in life, you get out of the relationship what you put into it. Why would it be any different when working with a logistics partner like a 3PL? If you approach the relationship with the idea of success through collaboration, transparency, and trust, you'll find your logistics partner will want to help you be successful. Your success is their success as well, and finding ways to save you money is truly something that most 3PLs are interested in. As you enter into a relationship with a 3PL, one of the first things you'll want to know is who actually owns the company. Oftentimes, 3PLs are owned by other organizations, creating a multi-layered network of logistics organizations. The words 3PL, 4PL, 5PL are being used more and more these days. And especially with 4 and 5PL, these are terms that note the level of oversight and integration that the organization can have with your company's business operations. We aren't teaching on 4PLs and 5PL today. However, the key point being made is that there's trade-offs with working with these organizations with additional layers of complexity. Some 3PLs can get you into places that others can't. Some 3PLs have unique fees associated with their ownership structure. Most of the organizations that we interviewed from Hawaii had very little understanding of how their 3PL is organized, what is the full breadth and depth of the services that they provide, and what the cost structure is. Maybe it's time that you revisit this for your business. All right, now let's turn our attention to analyzing the shipping processes in your organization to help you gain some key insights and improve your chances for success. I'll be providing you a few questions that you need to contemplate in order to make progress. First off, what is the current shipping process in your company and who manages it? Also, who in the company is in charge of this function and who else might have considerable knowledge about shipping or shipping within your organization? Do you have clear documentation regarding the shipping specifications of each product? Have you developed a clear process flow diagram for shipping? What does this look like? It looks like a step-by-step process of inflows and outflows of material. For instance, what happens from the time that your product is made or packaged to where it sits in storage, how it's boxed and palletized, the timing of pickup with your 3PL or freight forwarder. What are the list of all the things that are needed prior to pickup? A tip here is to segment the shipping process into receiving an order, processing the products for shipping, and fulfilling the products to the end customer. Make a list of who is responsible. Where does the information flow? What systems or fields are used and why? As a consultant in this space, I've seen what happens when organizations put little thought or purpose around analyzing the current state. What this analysis does is helps you hone in on the pain points and the wastes and helps raise the water level of understanding for everyone in the organization about how shipping is done. I use a program called Lucid Charts to do this, but you might be familiar with Visio or a variety of other software. In fact, you could just sit down and draw boxes and lines with a pencil and paper. The most important part here is documenting the process flow. And once you've put together this analysis, it's time to start collaboration with your teams and freight partners on the most cost-effective strategy for shipping while maintaining quality. Make sure to be clear about your short-term and long-term goals. Be clear about where you're shipping. Is it multiple islands, multiple states, multiple countries? What's your long-term goals and what you're trying to sell into? You need to stay realistic about your current state though. Unless you are shipping mass amounts of product, it can be difficult for you to save money. You do control the shipping frequency or the shipping volume. There may be some efficiencies in shipping once a month or once a week or once a day, or the way that you cargo or palletize. But assuming that you're an organization that's shipping higher quantities, you might be eligible for volume discounts and tiered pricing. To wrap this video up, let's revisit some key points. Creating a shipping strategy or revisiting your strategy will require work on a few internal and external experts. You need to map out this process and list all the questions, identify waste and inefficiency, and make sure everyone in your organization who works on this process understands their roles, requirements, and risks. You should find a partner you trust. And for organizations based on Hawaii, this is likely an organization on the islands with a deep understanding of your challenges, needs, and best practices. Don't stop asking questions and work to get as close to the process as possible. Understand the conditions, understand the cost, so that you can have peace of mind that you're getting the value that you pay for. Educate, educate, educate. The more you update your team and partners, the more communications will flow freely, and the more opportunity you will likely have through these conversations. And finally, you're not alone. There are experts on the island and around the United States that can help. Innovate Hawaii is a great resource and can provide guidance and point you in the right direction to resources. Companies like DSR are willing to help you try to save money and reduce headaches. Thanks for joining the Supply Chain Education module on shipping. In partnership with Innovate Hawaii, I'm Jake Blanchard from Vessel. Please make sure to share this video and post any questions or thoughts below in the comments section.
We really hope you found valuable insights within this training, and we're excited to hear your feedback. Our goal is to help improve Hawaii manufacturers' understanding of the supply chain. The more feedback we receive, the better we can provide meaningful connections and future ideas for how to service you and your teams. Please let us know what you thought through our survey Innovate Hawaii will send out over the next few weeks. Also, make sure to reach out to Wayne at Innovate Hawaii with any questions or concerns you may have. Thank you for attending, and mahalo.